Shelf tour number 6. Let us begin. Please, would you like and subscribe? Like, I like this video. Subscribe, when he makes another video, I want it to pop up. That's all. Please, won't you click? Please, won't you click? Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, author of Beloved. As I said in the last video, Toni Morrison wrote Beloved, and it is very, very violent novel. And normally, I quite enjoy violence in literature. However, it was too heart-wrenching in Beloved. Like, I really found it not gratuitous. It's not gratuitous violence for violence sake. Like, real. You feel the reality of it, which made it very painful for me to read. It was very hard reading that book, even though, like, you have to admit how much artistry went into it. It makes it really very hard for me to want to read more of Toni Morrison. Song of Solomon. Doesn't even say what it's about. The North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance agent promised to fly from Mercy to the other side of Lake Superior at 3 o'clock. 2 days before the event was to take place, he tacked a note to the door of his little yellow house. At 3 p.m. on Wednesday, the 18th of February, 1931, I will take off from Mercy to fly away on my own wings. Please forgive me, I loved you all. Signed, Robert Smith, insurance agent. That's pretty good. Just that he would sign his name with the insurance agent. I like that. I would keep reading this book. The Sorrow of War by Bao Ninh. So 2024 was really my big war book year, but for some reason I just never got round to this one. Bao Ninh was born in Hanoi in 1952. During the Vietnam War, he served with the glorious 27th Youth Brigade. Of the 500 who went to war with the brigade in 1969, he is one of the 10 who survived. A huge bestseller in Vietnam, The Sorrow of War is his first novel. I have never been a soldier, but there are wars happening in the world and people are dying horrifically. Mangled bodies, usually young people, and all of the potential they ever had to do anything was just snuffed out. Whatever they were going to do, maybe they were just going to hang around the local pub, but they'll never get even to do that because their lives were just extinguished mercilessly for a war, I suppose, is all about politics. Intrinsically, it's about politics. We don't like what's going on over there, or my government decides that we want to have this little bit of land here, so we're going to try to steal it from the people who already claim it, and we're willing to sacrifice thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of young people's lives for my nation's political ends. It's always the young people who have to make the sacrifices for God knows what historically significant motivations. Oh, Christ. Here is the book that maybe the most hated book on my shelves. Robert Musil, The Man Without Qualities, Volume 1. Volume 1, which is 725 pages. Volume 1. I started reading this, that's how far I got. Page 314, and I gave up. Now, I've left this bookmark in there. This is actually quite a bookmark that I am very, very fond of because I got this on a train in Germany somewhere. It defeated me. And I've left the bookmark in there because I said to myself that so little happens in this book, I can pick it up on page 314 and start reading, and it won't matter that I don't remember all of this because nothing happens. It is the most meandering, pointless book, like just awful, horrible book that I've ever read, and it's considered to be one of the great, great works of literature, part 1 and part 2, which I think part 2 is even longer than this motherfucker. Abominable, like a snowman or a book. Such a goddamn tedium, and if you ever have to read Ulysses, you just say, okay, 10 pages a day, I'll do that, and then I'll read the good books. But even 10 pages a day, it's just like you just never make any progress because there's nothing to get excited about. There's nothing to care about in this book. But I've got to read it because it's considered one of the great ones. It's on a lot of the big lists. I have to read this because I'm insane for literature. I guess I am. Like, I will keep this goddamn heavy book and I will read it. And even if I read it one time, I'm sure that I will even have this compulsion that I need to read it a second time because that's when you really get the good juices out of the book on the second reading. All right, come on, let's... Oh, Iris Murdoch, The Sacred and the Profane Love Machine. Iris Murdoch, The Black Prince. The Black Prince is a story about being in love. It is also a remarkable intellectual thriller with a superbly involuted plot. Involuted? Not convoluted, but involuted. I'm not sure that's a proper word. And a meditation on the nature of art. Oh, isn't it great when a book is the meditation on art? Is there a book which is a good meditation on art? One of the great artistic books is The Moon and Sixpence by Somerset Maugham. I feel that that is one of the greatest depictions of an artist who is willing to go to sacrifice his life for his art. But I wouldn't say that The Moon and Sixpence is a meditation on art. I'm a little bit undecided about Iris Murdoch at the moment because I've read two good ones, one mediocre and one bad. And the one was so bad that it really tarnished all the other ones. I've got these two, I guess they're not too long, 360 and 410. Okay, I know that's not too long, but it's that they used to publish books that were really small print. Oh, what's that? What's that? Oh, yeah, because I got that from the charity shop, so that was only $1. Dense words on the page. But I'm going to keep trying. Even though I've been disappointed with Iris in the past, I'm still a big fan, and I want more. Even though those two books really didn't do it for me, the two books that I did like, I really liked them. That was The Flight from the Enchanter, absolutely #1, and Under the Net. I'm going to keep trying with Iris Murdoch. We have this book, which is on my 2025 TBR, The Tale of Genji. I love Japanese literature. You know, isn't that wonderful? Like, here's a little time portal to the world 1,000 years ago, to a very interesting society. And I'll be reading this sometime soon, and I'll be definitely making a review of this one. Master and Commander, Patrick O'Brien, which led to the film. A friend of mine sent this one to me, one of the guys who's supporting me on Patreon. John sent me this from, where are you, John? Oregon? I can't say the name of your state. Looking forward to reading this one. You know, I've already seen the film. I saw it such a long time ago. I don't even remember. I just remember I saw it with a girl who wore high-heel shoes, and she always liked to take her shoes off in the cinema. Like, she would always do this thing. It was in Budapest, and it was my first Hungarian girlfriend. And a lot of the things she did, I just thought, well, okay, maybe this is what Hungarian girls do. And then later, I realized, no, she was just silly. So she liked to wear high-heel shoes. She would take them off in the cinema, and she would throw her legs on top of my knee. And she would kind of sit crossways and watch the movie like that. And I thought that was kind of cute, except her feet smelled bad. Because normally we would go to see these movies after we'd both been working all day. So we would go to see a movie on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night or a Thursday night, and she'd take off her shoes and throw them over my leg. And I just remember like this foot smell coming from this girl. And we watched this movie together. All right, let's go to the next book. La-di-da. 10 after 12. I've got jet lag. I just came back from Japan yesterday. I tell myself that I'm trying to get past my jet lag by staying up and drinking, but I think I'm just making it worse. Here's a Japanese one. Teach Us to Outgrow Our Madness by Kenzaburo Oe. 4 short novels, or novellas. 4 stark visions, universally acknowledged as one of the most important writers to have emerged from Japan since the end of World War II. Oe's passionate personal vision speaks for an entire generation. Well, does it? There's a very strange quotation here. His poetic force creates an imagined world where life and myth condense to form a disconcerting picture of the human predicament. And like that is attributed to the Nobel Committee, which is peculiar because I didn't think, or as far as I'm aware, that the Nobel Committee provided quotations to put on people's books. And he's a Nobel Prize winner, 1994. 1994. Where was I? 21. Oh, man, that was one of the very low points of my life. I don't even like to think about that part of my life. Jesus God. I went to university for 1 year when I was 20. Stopped going, I guess. Dropped out is the proper phrase. I just didn't know what to do with my life. I wanted to be a writer. I was reading. I was writing. I was submitting my poetry and short stories to magazines, mainly poetry at that point. and I was working a horrible job in a horrible place, and it gives me a very uncomfortable feeling to remember that 1.5 years that I spent doing that job, 1994 and 95, was really an awful period for me. But he won the Nobel Prize, and this is a book, and I'm going to read it, and I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. I do love Japanese literature. Michael Ondaatje, Coming Through Slaughter. Michael Ondaatje, I'm not crazy about. He's a Canadian writer by way of India. Very, very widely acclaimed, celebrated, especially since his novel was turned into a movie that was, you know, very artsy-fartsy and pretentious, but people liked it. You know, those artsy-fartsy films and the clever people that go to watch them, I mean, it's so goddamn stuck up, you know? Like, it's so pretentious. Oh, I went to see this film, which is based on this award-winning novel, and oh my goodness, wasn't I ever intellectually stimulated? The English Patient, that's it. But this novel is kind of special for me because at that year at university, the one that I went to, I took 20th century literature and I read this. And it was great, but in a very strange way. You know, it's this real, like, postmodernist, really postmodern, shake my fists at all the modernism. Pah! Postmodernism is the shit. Anyway, the professor really made a big deal of it. If I had have just read it on my own, I wouldn't have cared about it, but the professor really built it up and put the, you know, like, God, I've got to read that again one day. So maybe 31, 32 years later, I'll read it again. What else have I read by Michael Ondaatje? I've read The English Patient. I thought that was pretty good. I've read In the Skin of the Lion. I thought that was pretentious as shit. I read his collection of poetry called The Collected Works of Billy the Kid. That was pretty good, I have to say, even though, again, it's really postmodernism bullshit. Oh, what an intellectual I am to do these things. My goodness, I love myself, and here's my poetry. It's still good. Like, once you recognize genius, I can't call it anything else, you've got to acknowledge it. Like, yeah, I may not love everything he's done, I may not like the way he's done it, but I can really acknowledge, like, this guy is really got a lot of stuff up there. He doesn't do it quite the way that I love, but I respect the way he's doing it. Like, he's doing it Michael Ondaatje's way. I'm looking forward to rereading this one and talking about it again. Wow, what a shame that I haven't read this. George Orwell, Burmese Days. There he is. Eric Arthur Blair, his actual name. Poor George. George Orwell, whose real name was Eric Blair, was born in India in 1903 and was educated at Eton. From 1922 to 1928, he served in Burma in the Indian Imperial Police. For the next 2 years, he lived in Paris and then came to England as a school teacher. Later, he worked in a bookshop. It's amazing because almost all of that is related in his writing. Like the bit about where he was in Paris, he wrote a novel called Down and Out in Paris and London, which I reviewed and love that book. The bit about working as a bookseller, he wrote a book, like a very underrated book called Keep the Aspidistra Flying, which is another book that I love. I guess I really do love authors who take their lives and turn it into literature. Why do I like it? I don't know. Do I need to know why? I just like it. So I haven't read this one, which is really a shame because I'm such a huge fan of Orwell. It's just one of those books that I haven't got round to yet. I'll get round to all of them. I swear to God, I'm going to live till I'm 300 years old, and I'm going to read them all, and I'm going to read them all twice, and then I'll tell you something. God damn it, don't look at me like that. I'll show you, tabernacle. Grace Paley, The Little Disturbances of Man. Grace Paley tragically didn't write too much. She wrote this, absolutely fantastic. Did I do a review of this one? I hope that I did. Every short story is amazing in this collection. It's so goddamn good, this book, from a woman who, it seems that, you know, she really wasn't terribly interested in writing. Like, she was very interested in her family, she was very interested in politics, but not particularly terribly interested in writing. But when she did write, she wrote some of the great short stories of the 20th century. It's funny, isn't it? You pick up a book from your own goddamn shelves and it's like, I've never seen this before in my life. Who the hell put that there? Tim Parks, Europa, shortlisted for the Booker Prize. That will always get me. I have an obsession with the Booker Prize. I have an obsession with literary lists. So if something was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, then I've got to pick it up. What year? 1997. Tim Parks has written 9 novels in addition to an, I can't even read this, goddamn, an Italian education and Italian neighbors, and has translated I can't even read this, man. It's so impossible to read that. Weird, this book. Like, it kind of attracts me on one hand and repels me on the other hand. It's somehow like I pick it up and I look at it and I think yes, and then 2 moments later I think no. One day I will have to say yes to this one. Say yes to the naked ass. Say yes, Grant. The naked ass. Say yes to it. I'm really happy I found this one in a secondhand store, The Moviegoer by Walker Percy. You may or may not know, I'm doing this video series called The List. I haven't been very diligent about it for the last year, or perhaps even longer. This is one of the books on the list that I talked about, and it kind of made me realize I wasn't doing a very good job with the list videos, that I should really be more aware of the books that I'm talking about before I make the videos, because I want to talk about this book and not just sort of hold it up and say, yeah, here's a book to read, go ahead. I've read it once. I read it once in Budapest and just knew that it was a wonderful, wonderful book. But I'm looking forward to rereading this one again and really telling you about it, because you have to hear about this book and you have to read it. Prague by Arthur Phillips. I used to see this book in Budapest all the time. And I just think this book is probably not very good because, first of all, like, the book is not in any way about Prague. It's actually about Budapest, which you would think would be, a very high interest for me. A novel startling in scope and ambition, Prague depicts an internationally lost generation as it follows 5 American expats who come to Budapest in the 1990s to seek their fortune. They harbor the vague suspicion that their counterparts in Prague have it better, but still hope to find adventure, inspiration, a gold rush. Like, I should really read this book and love it because it's in Budapest and it's about Budapest. But because it's called Prague, I feel like the author is deceiving me. Like, I never want to read this book. I will, though, because, Budapest, I mean, that is something very important to me. My personality was largely shaped in Budapest, for better or for worse. We have this series of books, which I made a big review of, so there's a link over there. You can go to see this review of these books. Here they are, all, 3,000 pages, I believe? It's a 12-novel series called A Dance to the Music of Time by Anthony Powell. In this book, Volume 1, Spring, there's 3 novels. This is a collection of 3 novels. They all are. Collection 2, Summer, 3 novels. Collection 3, Autumn, 3 novels. And the final one, Winter, Anthony Powell, Dance to the Music of Time, the final 3 novels. Very good. Very, very, very good. At the beginning of COVID, when COVID shut everything down, I had these books and I said, all right, the world is on pause. Now is the time to read A Dance to the Music of Time. And I read them, book 1 to book 12, 3,000 pages in, I think it was 2 months. And I'm quite pleased with myself that I've read this, because that's a back-breaking amount of literature. But like I said, COVID, I had nothing better to do. There's a link up there if you want to see the review of A Dance to the Music of Time. It is considered one of the great works. It's a monster. However, it's a good monster, and it's something you can be quite proud of yourself. Like, you can pat yourself on the back when you read A Dance to the Music of Time, and you could rub it in the faces of all of the English teachers who haven't. I don't think I know anybody who's read this series. No, like, not a single other person do I know has read that. Probably you've read it. You guys are so clever. Kiss of the Spider Woman, Manuel Puig. Puig? I don't know why I picked this up. I guess because, this company that makes books like this, it was a film, right, in the 1980s? And it had that little whiff of sensuality about it. Kiss of the Spider Woman is a graceful, intensely compelling novel about love and victimization. Okay. In an Argentine prison, my oh my, 2 men share a cell. Molina, a gay window dresser who is self-centered, self-denigrating, yet charming as well. And Valentine, an articulate, fiercely dogmatic revolutionary haunted by memories of a woman he left for the cause. Both are gradually transformed by their guarded but growing friendship and by Molina's obsession with the fantasy and romance of the movies. Wow, that sounds really complex. I don't know, it's just whenever there was like a movie from the 80s, oh man, that doesn't fill me with inspiration. But come on, like if there was a movie from the 80s, then people probably had to start caring about this book in the 1970s. When was it published? 78. People must have loved this book enough. Some of the titles are so evocative. Kisses the Spider-Woman. You know, there are certain books that just have the perfect titles that are just, people are gonna buy them and never read them, or maybe read them, but the title alone, like there's certain books like Naked Lunch. Like you don't need to know anything about that book, but if you saw it in a bookstore, Naked Lunch, goddamn, I have to buy that. What's the other one? Breakfast at Tiffany's. That title, it's, you know, sell that book to me immediately. What's the other one that I like to mention? Catch-22. Like these books have absolute perfect titles. They're too enticing to pass them up, and I think this is also one of them. Well, Catch-22 is really perfect, but Breakfast at Tiffany's is kind of weird, and Naked Lunch is very weird. If Breakfast at Tiffany's and Naked Lunch had other titles, they wouldn't be as popular as they are. So you may have noticed that I keep mentioning that this friend of mine in Oregon, John, sent me a box full of books. Here's another one, Flight to Canada by Ishmael Reed. Thanks, John. You sent me all these goddamn books and I haven't read a single one of them. But I will. I will. Why did he send me this one? God, I don't know. Did you even read this one, John? I mean, it looks pretty pristine, you know, except for the smudge on the back, but that's okay. Did I put that in there or did you put that in there? I think John may have put that one in there. Thanks, John. One day I'll read it. God knows. John Rice, Why Sargasso Sea. This is the, you know Jane Eyre, and you know how Rochester has his first wife up in the attic? Sorry, big spoilers on a 200-year-old novel, but if you haven't read Jane Eyre, then you watch another video for Christ's sake. Don't watch mine. You have to have read Jane Eyre to watch my videos. I wag my finger at you. Whether you've read Jane Eyre or not, this is the story of, what's her name? Bertha Mason, who ends up as the woman in Rochester's attic. This is her story. It's completely wonderful that Jean Rice wrote this as, you know, because Jane Eyre is one of the big novels of the 19th century, and there's a woman who's locked up in an attic, and she's, I won't say she's a plot device, but I could say she's a plot device. This author wants to get to the bottom of how that plot device got up there in the attic, and what's her story. I think this is held up as quite, or it should be held up as, you know, a very big statement for, you know, feminism. Jane Eyre wrote a book about a woman who's locked in an attic. She uses her to keep the machinations of her story going. But this author had the sympathy with that character, and I think a lot of us have a sympathy with the woman locked in the attic, Bertha Mason. How did she get up there? Like, why is she the victim locked up in an attic? Like, who is this Rochester man who locked his first wife away? And we figure it out in this short, brilliant novel. If you've read Jane Eyre, it's quite important to also read Why Sargasso Sea. Mordecai Richler, The Street, Canadian writer from Montreal. He wrote The Apprenticeship of Dudley Kravitz, which I did really enjoy. And then I read something else of his, which I just absolutely hated. I don't even want to say the name of it. I'll read this short book. Hopefully it will give me a few better feelings, because the shit book that I read from Mordecai Richler really turned me off. He dropped off my list of great Canadian authors. One Ruleful, Pedro Paramore. I have to read this one again before I can speak about it. Very, very short, very excellent, but I'm even afraid to say anything about it without reading it a second time. Oh, my goodness, we're getting into some really strange territory. The Marquis de Sade, Justine. You know, there are some books that I thought, You know, I'll never make a video about that book because I think that if I were to recommend this book to people, there is a possibility that psychopaths might read it and give them bad ideas. And this is one of those books. Like, this is a book, so even right now, I don't even want to tell you what's in this book because, like, I really do feel that. Like, this book can really upset people who are on the edge of doing dastardly deeds. If someone who's trying to contain themselves were to read this, like, it could really ruin them. So I won't say anything more. So that book by Marquis de Sade I have read. This book by the Marquis de Sade I have not read, The 120 Days of Sodom and Other Writing. It's so funny because I found this in a secondhand store. My first reaction when I saw this was, I have to buy that book so that someone who's not prepared for that book doesn't accidentally buy it. Because I've read Justine, and Justine, to use a common popular phrase, is nightmare fuel. Be warned. And this seems to be like twice as long, or if not 3 times longer, 700 pages. There's a very certain reason why the Marquis de Sade has his well-deserved infamous reputation. Like, it's not a joke. Like, we think we're so sexually liberated because we've got the porn and we could watch all the videos, watch all the dirty stuff you like, but it won't come close to what's published in these pages. It really does make me feel worried when I talk about the Marquis de Sade because what's in here is filth that are inconceivable until you've read it. And even when you've read it, you just, the depths, the deepest depravity. If you're a psychopath, please don't read this. Please, please, please don't. Please don't. Stick with Catcher in the Rye. All right, let's get these out of the way, for Christ's sake. Jean-Paul Sartre, Nausea. Well, there you go. W.G. Sebald, Vertigo. I keep searching for this guy, Sebald. I keep searching for Austerlitz, but I can't find it. But when I saw his name, I thought, okay, there's the guy that wrote Austerlitz, so I'll buy this anyway. I don't know if it's any good, but, there's fucking pictures in this book. Never a good sign. You know, like, it's just pictures. Like, what am I, an 8-year-old? Apparently, the writer of Austerlitz, like, that's supposed to be some goddamn great book. So I bought this, but I really don't have any high hopes for it. Who knows? Maybe it'll be like some life-changing, like, bang, bing, exclamation points, fireworks. Maybe. Could be. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Who the hell ever told you that you should be making videos about literature? I don't know. So that's shelf number 6. Man, I gotta stop getting pissed when I make the videos. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. That's the end of the video. I'm not gonna do shelf number 7 and 8 tonight. I'm gonna sit on the sofa and watch silly YouTube videos and drink a little more and go to bed and try to get over this jet lag. You don't give a shit about that. Thanks for watching. Again, I mean, talking about it, knowing what I'm talking about instead of just blathering away right now and not knowing a goddamn thing what I'm saying. Why do you watch these videos? Like, honestly. Grant, you're kind of funny when you get in your drinking videos. I don't know. Look at that finger, full of derision, wagging at you. The shame that is pouring off this finger if you haven't read Jane Eyre. You look at my nose. Ha ha, I see the derision pouring out. God damn, somebody's drunk.